Broadheads come in two flavors, mechanical and fixed blade. Okay. The sharpness is key. In fact, game wardens can stop you. Check the sharpness of your broadhead. Basically, it's a square where you run rubber bands across it. So it's a frame. You run in both directions, rubber bands up and down, sideways. If you push the broadhead through it, it cuts the rubber bands. You're sharp enough. If not, you're not sharp enough. You can get a fine. But these are all modern, relatively or new, or let's say they're modern. Not that they're the latest and greatest in every case, but they're modern broadheads. Every single one of them is as sharp as the other in terms of their cutting surface. They're all scalpel sharp. All right. We have fixed blades and we have mechanicals. Let's talk about fixed blades first. Here's an old school style fixed blade. It's a Thunderhead 100 made by Knapp. They still make these, I believe. It's a big broadhead. Okay, you can see it here. This is what it would look like if it was coming at your head. Pretty menacing. I don't know how focused that is. It's got a pretty big diameter, cutting diameter from one side to the other. I'm trying to do this in the viewfinder without cutting myself. This kills deer just fine. They're relatively inexpensive too. When you get into broadheads, you're looking at $30 to $40 range for 3 of them. This is probably like in the $25 range for 6 of them. They're a bit of a pain in the ass because you got to put them together and stick them on your arrows. That doesn't really matter much. Killed a lot of deer with these. They work great. Problem with them is they have a big surface to catch wind. So when you're shooting a bow, a fixed blade broadhead is more subject to deviations in flight due to wind or due to tuning. You may need to retune your bow when you put a fixed blade on there. But they work just fine. They're more of a problem on the newer bows that shoot close to 300 feet per second. That extra power will make this wind surface more likely to catch wind and to throw off your broadhead. There's also issues. You need to sort of figure out how you're going to line up these blades with your fletchings, right? So fixed blade broadheads certainly have a place. They're really good. Now this is the old school one. Now let's compare and contrast that to a G5 broadhead. This is now made by Montech. Okay, so this is a one-piece, basically stainless steel, super sharp. Okay, but look at the diameter, the cutting diameter. This is certainly sufficient, and the overall size compared to the Thunderhead. So here's the Montech, here's the Thunderhead, right? This is a smaller, more compact broadhead, less likely to catch wind. Okay. Now I can tell you that these shoot out of my bows just fine. I don't need to retune to use them. But people have had problems with them in terms of, again, catching wind. Or the need to retune your bow because they will affect the flight because they have a certain ability to catch wind, and you may need to retune your bow. These are really good though. I shot deer with every single broadhead that you see here. They go right through deer if you take a double lung shot out up to 30 yards. Most of them are closer. They go right through the deer. Work every time. So those are fixed blade. That's what we think of when we see a broadhead, from a cowboy, an Indian movie. That's usually what we think of. Now, we can go now into mechanicals. Now, I told you the fixed blade broadheads are subject to this thing of retuning or resighting in your bow to get them, and you got to get them to fly right, and so there's a little bit of work sometimes involved in using the fixed blades. You could be lazy like me. I'm not so lazy as I don't have a lot of time to do every single thing I want, so where I can get away with things or make my life easier, I do. One thing you can do in that case is go to a mechanical broadhead. Now this is an old rocket broadhead, really old, one of the earlier mechanicals. Nice compact tip. Actually, if you look at these, their profile is very similar to a field point that we use just for target archery, right? You screw these on the end of an arrow, you don't have to change anything. So if your bow sighted in with field points, You screw these on, or most other mechanical broadheads, there's no issue whatsoever. Flies the same way. The way these work, this happens to be held forward with rubber bands, you can see here. But when this hits the animal, okay, this chisel point hits and enters, what will happen is now these blades will come back like that. So they get pushed back when it enters the animal, and again it'll fly right through. So now you go from a pretty compact design, and if you look at the cutting surface of this arrow, right, it's pretty big. Let's compare it to the other two I just showed you. So we compare the cutting surfaces of these guys, and I think you could appreciate, I'm not sure how well this is focusing in, of course, but I think you can appreciate that that little tiny mechanical broadhead is now got a cutting surface that's on par. This is great camera work, Jesus Christ. On par with what we've seen for the fixed blade broadheads. There you go, sorry. Right? Yeah, so but what the mechanical does is allow you to have a very nice, undisturbed flight of the arrow, and then when it hits, it opens up in a way that gives you a big maximal cutting surface. The chisel points are bone crushing. There's a lot of talk about mechanicals not being good. That's baloney. I've seen deer, I've seen these things perform as well, if not better, than fixed blades, and I won't even, let's not even get into the debate. But if you take the shots you're supposed to be taking with a bow, mechanicals work just great. Okay. That rocket's a relatively old broadhead. Here's actually my ultimate favorite, the Spitfire broadhead. Same design. Now the difference, you'll notice, there's no rubber band on this one. So there's a mechanical way of holding these forward, which is nice because then you don't break or lose that little rubber band, for instance. So most of the modern, or I think the better modern mechanical broadheads have a mechanical device. Again, this is a rock hard, super sharp chisel point. You can see it's pretty sharp. This hits the animal, boom. These open up. Now look at what you're getting. Okay, look at the cutting edge on this. That's a mamma jamma. Let me tell you, you hit deer with this thing, they bleed like a mofo, and there's no, a blind man could follow the blood trail. Look in the cutting edge there, even compared to a pretty big fixed blade broadhead. It's significantly bigger, folks. Spitfire is a nasty broadhead. But incidentally, all these broadheads tend to be 100 grain broadheads. That's just what I shoot, how my bow's tuned. There's an updated cousin to the Spitfire called the Scorpion that I really like. The difference is it has a more aggressive cutting head on it. The downfall of it is it's got back to the rubber O-ring system, but again, this hits the deer. These blades will now pop open. Wham, wham, wham. I'm not going to pull them. Let's do it like this. I don't want to wreck my O-ring. Actually, so there's a problem with your O-ring. You can see that right now. This O-ring has just failed. So if that happens, that arrow is no good for you in the field. You have to get another O-ring on it. But anyway, they dry out, so be aware of that. I have extras to repair it. But there you go. So now you have a really nice package to deliver the death blow to your prey. Again, very nicely done. It's about the same size as the same cutting edge. It's a little smaller than the Spitfire. So a lot of people really like these, including myself. Here's a new kind of broadhead. Most the Spitfires and the Scorpions, those blades come back this way. This is sort of a newer concept. People debated. I don't think there's any real debate, about having to flip those forward or backwards, those cutting edges backwards, and lots of masturbation regarding whether or not that's effective. Let me tell you, it is. From a lot of deer shot and put in the freezer, it is. They're very effective. But here's the answer to that non-existent controversy. This is a Rage broadhead. You can see that cutting edge is real close to what the Scorpion looks like. The difference in this broadhead is what happens is that when this hits, let's get this back the way it's supposed to. When this hits the animal, the hide catches the forward parts here, and what they actually do is they get pushed back like so, right? So they're pushed back without being inverted, so they don't flip over. They're just pushed back through their channel, and it opens up to your cutting edge like that. Okay. What do I think about these? I think this is a lot of guys like them. I can tell you the problem with them. Problem is when you put them in your quiver, you push them into your quiver, it tends to pop out the blades. Now when I get in a tree stand, often it's dark or blind, and fiddling around with sharp broadhead blades is not my favorite thing to do. It's also got an O-ring in it, which I don't really like for the reason I just showed you. And the other point is that compared to the other mechanicals, you have a cutting edge exposed here, so you have to treat this more like a fixed blade in terms of being potentially cutting yourself. Now, a lot of guys will cut themselves on broadheads. It just happens, so be aware of that. That's one of the reasons I like the Scorpion so much. No O-ring, a wicked chisel point, huge cutting surface, but the cutting, there's no cutting here. Okay, I'm rubbing my fingers on it because the cutting edge does not become exposed until this arrow hits hide and these blades are now opened. A lot of people say, well, they don't open, that's the problem. That's bullshit. Let me tell you something. A lot of people see these, they'll find them and they'll be closed, or they'll go through a target and they'll be closed like that. What you're actually looking at, and I'll try to reproduce it for you right here, is just the inertia. So here's my arrow. It's gone through a deer, and of course it's going to stop somehow. So let's make it stop, and then you can see just right. So if I take these, let me just do it this way because I'm not the speed of an arrow. But if I take this and I make a stud and stop, it looks like it didn't open, right? And actually with more speed, this will actually wind up closing itself again. People think they don't open. What you should do is go back and look at your wound channel. There's a big difference between this and this. And I can tell you that if you inspect the wound channel, you'll see a gaping hole created by this arrowhead. Okay? Alright, so broadheads are a personal choice. People get really worked up about them. It's a never-ending debate. But I can tell you any of these broadheads will work for you. If I had to recommend one out of this bunch, I'd pick the Spitfires. No question about it. Outstanding broadheads. They knock down deer. Alright, hope that's helpful. Thanks.